Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Peace and Profits, the podcast. My name is Kelly Carrico, and I am your host, and I am so happy to be back this week. For those of you who listen every week and you know who you are, hi, Heather. Hi, Brittany. I appreciate you missing me last week. I'm actually just getting my voice back. It's just that time of year, I guess, for everybody. And so I had no voice to record a podcast last week. And today I'm just really hoping that we can do this without me having to clear my throat for your sake and for mine. So I'm actually extremely excited to share today's message with you. I've been looking forward to this now for a couple of weeks, and it's based on a Zoom meeting that I actually led back in September for a group of business women. So today, this podcast is for the person who has wondered if you even matter, if the things that you're doing matters, if the passion that you have on your heart matters, if your business matters, if your activities matter. This podcast is for the person who has questioned, does anybody even know what I'm doing? Like, does anybody even know what I care about? This podcast is for the person who has been working with other people and you feel unseen or unimportant. Today's podcast is titled You Matter. I want you to go ahead and commit to listening to all of this, all the way through from start to finish. Maybe you're not in the place of questioning your purpose or your value with your current passion or your project, but this podcast is still for you because I promise you that in any kind of business at all or in life in general, you are going to come across people who need to feel seen, who need to feel heard, and who need to be told that they matter. Okay, so I want to start today's podcast with a story about a breakfast date that I had a little while back with a friend of mine named Jessica. And so Jessica has had a very rough year. Last year in 2021, her oldest child was diagnosed with cancer. And Jessica, very similar to me, she had her daughter young. And so they grew up together. And you guys have heard me talk about my oldest, Katie. I mean, she's my best friend. And Jessica and her daughter were exactly the same way. And earlier this year, late spring, early summer, Jessica, her daughter, lost her battle with cancer. And she's really struggled since then, which is obviously very understandable. And I've kept my eye on her and I've checked in on her. And I'm very funny about those things because I never want to be the person who, just shows up when something goes wrong. And I truly believe that you guys, you need to really pay attention to the people, yes, who show up when bad things are happening in your life, but also those who are your cheerleaders when good things are happening as well. And so Jessica and I had really connected the whole year. And like I said, I had checked in on her this summer to see how she was doing. And then a couple of, excuse me, there it goes. A couple of weeks ago, Jessica had invited me to breakfast at Cracker Barrel. And I want you to know something about me. Before probably 2019, had this happened, of course, immediately I would have been like, yes, yeah, I'll meet you. But then the truth is, what would have happened between the time I said yes and the time that it was, the day to meet her, I probably would have come up with a reason to not go. Not because of Jessica, but because of my own concern with would I say the right thing? Would I listen correctly? Would I accidentally be insensitive? All of these doubts on whether I would even be qualified to sit and have breakfast with a friend who had gone through such trauma so recently. And during this time of me connecting with Jessica and her asking to meet for breakfast, it was very confirmed with me that it was important. It was just eggs and bacon, but it mattered. And that day I showed up and I went, and Nothing out of the ordinary happened that day. We sat and I just listened. I listened to stories about her daughter and we talked about how much it sucked. And I listened more than I talked. And when I left that day, it was like God spoke to me and said, "You matter." And there was a moment before meeting her that I did question, like, do do I even matter in this situation? This situation is so big. I clearly can't fix it. Does it even matter that I'm meeting her for breakfast? And when I left, I was really reminded that I did. And I think that there are some people who are probably going to hear this podcast and you have found yourself in a place recently where perhaps you were invited to a party and you're like, it doesn't even matter if I go. Nobody's going to notice. Or maybe your team or your business, they were going to have a Zoom and you're like, nobody will notice if I don't go. Maybe you were supposed to go to a Sunday school class and you're like, oh, nobody's going to miss me. Or maybe you just signed up for Burn Boot Camp and you've been going for a week, but then that Thursday you wake up and it's cold outside and you're like, it doesn't matter if I go. Everybody, they have plenty of other people. I want you to have a very sobering moment with yourself. That have you ever devalued yourself in that way? And the morning that I ate breakfast with Jessica, it just really reminded me that I mattered. And these small moments in our life, these small opportunities that we have to connect with other people, they are valuable. And we often devalue them by saying, oh, it doesn't matter if I go. When what if God was using you, specifically you, to show up at that party, to be on that Zoom call, that was the moment that you were going to hear something that was going to change everything for you. But you convinced yourself that it didn't matter, that nobody would notice. I want you to really get serious with how serious you take yourself and your life and your moments and these times that God gives you. Guys, comparison is the thief of joy. We know that that is true, but it is also the root of feeling unimportant. If you've ever found yourself in a place like glancing at social media and thinking, oh, well, hers is better. Of course, they'd rather work with that photographer. Yeah, she has a much better personality. She's better at what she does. She's been doing it longer. Or maybe you scroll through and you're like, well, of course she wants to work with her. You know, she has 10,000 followers and I have 402. Are you constantly placing yourself in a situation where you are lowering your value and making yourself unimportant? You see, sometimes it's very convenient to blame other people, to say, oh, you know what? They're not paying attention to me. They don't know if I'm there or not. They don't care if I come. When really, it's you. This is a hard conversation, but it is so important for you to have with yourself. It might not be anybody's fault but your own that you don't feel seen and heard, that you don't feel important. Because do you think that you're worthy of being seen, of being heard? I want to read to you something out of Corinthians. This is Corinthians 12, 14, and 18. Okay, let me get this in front of me here. Indeed, the body is not one part, but many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I don't belong to the body, is it not for that reason any less a part of the body? And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, it is not for that reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God has arranged each one of the parts in the body just as He wanted. And if they were all the same part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. Or again, the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. Guys, they all matter. In this verse or these verses in Corinthians, we are learning directly from the Bible that all the parts matter and they were never intended to do the exact same thing or be like another part. Whatever team or business that you're working in or working on, I need you to see right now that you were designed with a purpose and you are there for a purpose and you were never supposed to be or act or sound like anybody else. You matter. You do. Your gifts, your talents, they're there for a reason. You were supposed to be on the Zoom call. It did matter that you didn't go. You were supposed to be at the party. It did matter that you didn't show up. You were supposed to go to the breakfast with the girl who needed to be heard. You were. If you feel unseen or unheard or unimportant, is it because you are not showing up in your own life like you matter? It is up to you to see that you are not designed to be anybody else. And it is up to you to show up in your life like you matter. Because if you don't, no one else is going to think so either. If you do not decide today to value your projects, your dreams, and your business like you deserve to be seen, then it is all a waste of time. And guys, time is too precious to waste. You began this business, this dream, this project because at one point in your life, you knew that it was important. You knew that it mattered. And I am here today to tell you that it still does, the way that you're going to do it. If you want to be a photographer and there are 75 other photographers in a 10-mile radius, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to do it for your clients differently than anybody else ever could. If you wanted to sell vitamins to the world, but then 100 other people do in your same town, who cares? It's your dream and it matters. Your business matters because you are supposed to reach a different group of people than somebody else. The eyes, the ears, the nose, all of the parts of the body, they matter, and they're not supposed to do anything else or anything like anybody else. They matter on their own accord. Why continue to work for something that you are constantly undermining? The truth is, you control your own value. God has already told you that you are immensely important and valuable, and not everyone is designed to do the same thing, but it is up to you, actually, every single day to show up and decide to stand up tall and walk in your own life like you're important. And you are. You matter. People will notice if you don't come to the party. People would for sure pay attention if you missed that call. And people would care if you closed your doors today. You might not think that anybody is watching. You might not think that anybody cares, but there might be one person, one who you could change their entire life. And if you don't show up, if you don't think that you're important, then their life will never be changed. I wanted to end today with reading to you something from a book called Chasing Vines by Beth Moore. And it is exactly what I've been preaching about. And when I first read this last year, it just really, really struck me. And so in her book, she's actually quoting another poem. And the poem is The Summer Day by Mary Oliver. And she asked the question, tell me, What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? That wild and precious life of yours matters. It matters to God and to the world. Not a drop of it is wasted. Your work matters. Your gifts matter. Your tears matter. Your pain matters. Your joy matters. Your hopes matter. Your dreams matter. Your success matters. Your failures matter. Your relationship matters. Your memories matter. Your childhood, it matters. Your past matters. Your future matters. Your present matters. God wants to use all of it. In the hands of the vine dresser, nothing is dropped and everything matters. God wants you to flourish. Will we sit idly by and wait for it to happen? Whatever that it is for you, I want you to think about that. Are you just going to sit idly by and just hope that it happens as if cooperation isn't even a part of the process? Or will we set out light on our feet, hearts ablaze, and give chase to this call to flourish? Guys, I want you to see that you have an active part in your life, in your success, and in the way that other people see you, and in the way that you see yourself. If you feel unseen, decide to be seen. If you feel unheard, decide to be heard. And if you feel like you don't matter, decide that you do. I hope that this message reaches the right person. My prayer is that this is shared with the right person. Maybe you got nothing out of it, but perhaps somebody in your network would. So share it because it is an important message. Somebody today needs to hear that they matter. So, guys, I hope that this was an inspiration for you or somebody else around you. And until next time, have a very peaceful and profitable week.